All right, number 80, reluctant skeptics. That is the subject of today's video. As always, please like the video, comment on it below, click the subscribe button. All of those things help other people to see these videos. Like many mediums, I have loved ones who are skeptical about mediumship or who outright don't believe in it. And of course that creates a tension because we love each other, and so there's always a tension there with some people. In my personal case, most of those people are atheists who don't believe in either God or an afterlife. And so mediumship is automatically impossible if there is no afterlife, right? And then also some of them, they have a very rigid view of reality, and then other people, a smaller percentage because of their religious beliefs. So I want to point out, as I have in other videos, that I know a lot of atheists, and never has any one of them ever said to me that they don't believe in gods and goddesses. They've always said to me they don't believe in God, which in and of itself is a Western biblical framing of what, if anything, exists before and after this physical life, right? And I, like billions of people on this planet, grew up believing in an afterlife, but not believing in God, especially the way Westerners define that concept. My religious and spiritual background is not Western, even though I grew up born and raised in the United States. And so if that's your reasoning, part of your reason is you just don't believe in an afterlife, I encourage you to examine how those beliefs are still probably based in some kind of Western biblical thing. So what prompted the making of this video is I recently was reading articles about a fairly newly discovered medical condition, and it prevents people from doing something very simple. So just a very quick exercise. If you could, you can close your eyes, keep them open, it doesn't matter. But just imagine in your mind's eye a red car. Any make and model, any year, a red car. And then imagine a white car. Any year, any make and model. Doesn't matter which. See how easy that was? There are people who suffer from a condition called aphantasia. You're born with it. And people who have aphantasia cannot picture things in their mind's eye. They don't have one. It's like their mind's eye is blind. They literally cannot picture things in their own heads. And it affects anywhere from 1% to 2.5% of the human population, which means anywhere between 80 million and 200 million people cannot picture things in their heads. So I was watching this very funny YouTube video about a woman who grew up with aphantasia, and she said when she discovered, it was in school, when she discovered that people could see things in their heads, she'd done really badly on a test. She was complaining about it to a friend, and her friend said, well, you just picture that page, the map or whatever it was in the textbook. And then, I'm looking at that in my head and I'm answering the questions. And she's like, what do you mean looking at it in your head? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So, oops, my speaker just changed. So I'm quickly going to rechange it because I don't want that happening. Okay, good. On my speaker, my microphone. So she said that's how she found that out. And when she was finally convinced and she realized, oh, people can do that, they can picture things in their heads, she thought that was cheating. She's like, that's really unfair. So it's a thing. Aphantasia is a thing that tens of millions of people all over the world suffer from. And this is a little bit what it's like being a medium, even though because people who can't do something and who have never tried something are telling you that it's not possible because they can't do it, or most people they know can't do it, right? So even though, and here's the thing, it's typically people who get really obnoxious about this are typically people who have never been to a medium or who have never attempted mediumship themselves, but they're convinced about what is and is not possible, right? So these folks, for me, in my experience, fall into two broad categories. One is politely awkward. They don't know because it really doesn't match up with their worldview, and so they don't know what to do about that because we love and respect each other. And then on the other end of the spectrum are the obnoxious, hostile people. I get a lot of really nasty comments that I delete on my Facebook posts and my YouTube videos about mediumship. And the thing is, the vast majority, like over 90% of those, I can see haven't watched the video because I can see if the count goes up or not. And so when comments are happening, but the count isn't increasing, they're not watching, and yet they're commenting about how it's fraudulent or there's no such thing or whatever. So that's an interesting commonality between people who are obnoxious about not believing in something. So I would ask you one last imagining exercise, if you could do this. Imagine for a moment that people with aphantasia are the majority, And you and I, who can picture things in our heads, are in the minority, right? We're those weirdos who can see things in our heads. And imagine what that's like. So in that world where people with aphantasia are the majority, let's say there's something like Thanksgiving happening. You're going to go to someone's house for Thanksgiving and you wonder who's going to be there too. And someone says, oh, Bob's coming. And he's bringing that girlfriend. And people say, oh, you mean the one who can see things in her head? Yeah, she can see things in her head. Like, that's what it's like. Everyone laughs, some of them politely, some of them maliciously, but there's that staunch, well, I can't do this, so nobody else can belief, right? That's what it's like being a medium. It's very, very similar. I think it's a really good analogy. So the other thing, and I know it's the annoying people that I'm complaining about more in this video, is for some non-believers, I've seen a lot of them, whether they're polite about it or obnoxious about it, they use a pseudo-scientific method to prove to themselves that there is no such thing as mediumship and or no such thing as an afterlife. And I say pseudoscientific because the scientific method is a real thing. It has distinct steps that you have to follow. You make an observation, you ask a question, you form a hypothesis, like there are steps to follow. And these people have decided something ahead of time is true or not true, and then or real or not real, and then they use the scientific method to prove what they've already decided is true or not true. That's not using the scientific method. That's conclusion shopping is what that is. The scientific method is its own individual thing where you don't know how it's going to come out at the end. So it's not open-minded, and in the worst case, because a lot of these people perceive themselves to be very open-minded, in my experience. So in the worst case, it's not open-minded, and in the worst case, it's this proudly ignorant thing that I'm finding very disturbing. In the last 5 years or so, I've seen a lot of political conclusion shopping on social media, and there's often this proudly ignorant aspect to it that really bothers me. It's a part of our culture. So, and I hope, I'm not trying to offend anyone with this video, but I hope you understand that I grew up gay in the United States decades ago, and people, even nowadays, people have decided things about me. They know things about me without knowing me, without meeting me. They've announced things to me about gays and lesbians, not knowing that I am gay, or they've announced things to me specifically about me, again, without asking me any questions, without knowing anything about me. So maybe I'm a little touchy on this subject of people who are certain in their knowing about something that they really don't know anything about. Really, if I'm trying to find good in most or all people, what it comes down to is that certainty is comforting. And mediumship throws a great big wrench into that comfort if your worldview does not include an afterlife, or does include an afterlife, but definitely does not include something like mediumship. Mediumship is a great big wrench in that comfort, right? So I'll say, and I've said this in other videos too, since discovering the world of mediumship, since developing this skill myself, because it is a learnable skill, I am no longer sure what is impossible. And that's really uncomfortable, because I don't believe that any crazy, stupid thing is possible, but I honestly don't know anymore. Like, what's impossible? I'm not sure. And I recognize the discomfort. And if it's uncomfortable for me, right, if that whole concept is uncomfortable for me, then someone who's already a hardcore skeptic or an atheist or whatever the reasoning is, it must be super uncomfortable for them. So I have a tiny bit of feeling for them, but not a lot, because I'm on the receiving end of the nasty behavior. I want to end this video by saying this. If you are a skeptic, or you flat out don't believe, period, end of story, it may be possible, I'm going to suggest that it's possible, that you might not know everything about time-space reality. It's a really big topic, and there may be things about that topic that you don't really know, or that we as a species don't know yet. That's what I'm going to suggest. Next week, I'm going to talk about hauntings. I'm not sure what to think about hauntings. I don't think they're people in spirit, but I'm not sure. I've definitely experienced things that could only be classified as hauntings, as that's defined, so I'm going to talk about that. Until then, thank you for watching this video. Like it, comment on it below, click the subscribe button. That really does help more people to see these videos. Thank you for tuning in, and see you next time.